So this is the song World War Ragnarök. It is about the final war that will bring about the end of days, based on Viking mythology. And given the state of the world nowadays, it is very possible, with essentially one button's press away, to destroy our entire nations and our planet. It's recorded on the Fostex 160 4-track machine from 1982, I believe. The vocals you heard are actually recorded on track 2 of the 160, and all these tracks are recorded with EQ before they hit the tape. This is why the EQ remains neutral when playing back. I largely like to perfect the mix before it hits the tape, and this is also because the Fostex bypasses the EQ during mixdown. So what I mean by that is the Fostex 164 tape outs will bypass any EQ or effects you dial in on the Fostex 160. When you're doing mixdown on Reaper or any of the DAW, I use Reaper. So you have to hit the tape with these effects before you record. And I like to get the mix as perfected as possible before I mess with the digital Reaper after mixdown. So the microphone I use is called a Tack 57. It is a knockoff of an SM57, a dynamic microphone which is industry standard for all sorts of loud stuff like vocals, drums, guitar amps, you name it. I also run the microphone through a Behringer Scenics 1202 FX mixer, which helps rise the impedance before I send it through a compressor pedal called a Tone City. It's for guitar, but it compresses the vocals. I then use Xenix's tape outs to take the vocals through a Cube Baby by M-Wave, which is a guitar multi-effects processor. So on the Cube Baby, I have a radio IR, 1930s radio impulse response basically, as well as some reverb and some gain. And I also have some really cool delay, which helps pick up choruses, and I can literally just record it at will by just pressing that button. Back in college, a wise man once told me, you cannot polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter. And this is basically what this is with audio engineering and production. Now, what that term means basically is when you have a bad sound, a bad tone, whether it's a guitar tone or a drum tone or anything, a bad vocal, you can't polish it, you cannot fix it with EQ or anything. You're going to spend ages trying to fix it. You can roll it in glitter, meaning you can maybe put auto-tune on or some stuff. But at the end of the day, it's just going to be that, a turd rolled in glitter, and it's going to sound still like a turd. Like you get all the modern pop artists who can't sing and then they add auto-tune because they mumble into the mic, it sounds like a turd. And then they add the glitter, aka the auto-tune, and it still sounds bad. But it would have sounded worse without it. TLDR, you have to get the sound perfect before you can even achieve anything like a good sound, you know. By relying on production and technology, you're only going to go so far. What that means for me is I need to get the performance nailed, be in time or as close to in time as possible. But also it needs to be that all the effects I add, like the delay, the distortion, the reverb, anything, my vocal tone, essentially my effects chain, it needs to be perfect before it hits the tape. Otherwise I'm going to have a hard time fixing it in Reaper. The idea of using these old school 4-track machines is to get a walkable demo using them as a musical notepad that I can then transfer over to Reaper and work on and turn into a full production. The coming about of these machines and everything that came afterwards really kind of changed what a demo is. Back in the day, it used to be a case of just stick a Walkman in the center of band practice and play as loud as possible. And then you get demos that sound like a wall of noise, literally like a square wave. And this so happens nowadays, you get people who don't really know how to record. They just kind of stick their cell phone, their mobile phone, in the center of band practice and record it. Doesn't sound great. But if you get a multi-track demo like this, these machines allow you to. That essentially allows you to keep working on the demo and get it perfect before you can digitize it and really turn it into full production. Back in the day, this wasn't really possible because these machines were either really expensive or just coming out. And so the demos were not really workable. So bands would basically have to go into the studio and re-record everything. Obviously, there was no home recording. These machines revolutionized the whole home recording process. So nowadays, really, you can get demos that are very pretty down close to the final product and are workable and able to be turned into full productions thanks to machines like this one and everything that came afterwards. So really, for me, the idea of a demo is to get it as close to the finished product as possible before I mess with it in Reaper. This means it needs to be workable and sound musical and sound good before it even goes into Reaper, just to avoid the whole polishing a turd conundrum.